Greetings.
That's
Good
enough.
evening.
That's enough.
Welcome to our Sabbat reading on the evening of Yom Shishi and the opening of Yom Shabbat. I am Sister Deidre and I'm here with Brother Cruz. And before we get started, as always, I'm going to open the space and just make sure that we all give reverence about whom we would not be. I would also like to make sure that we pay respects to Chief Jegna of this movement, Chief Yuya Assaan-ANU, sending him power and peace and days. Um, Before we get started, I'll also read the preface, right, for the Anu way. We want to make sure that as you are coming into this space, that everyone has an understanding of how this tome is to be read. So, the Anu Way Foundation. This book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book, knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with your brothers and sisters. Share this information with your peers. This publication should be read daily. I'll say that again. This publication should be read daily. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be delivered. And that is the preface of this book by Yuya. So without further ado, we are going to get started. And we're going to open this with a reading on family. So we are at the section of family, and we're actually going to take a little ride. Family is going to be for a while, and shaking it up a little bit. So I'm here joined with Brother Cruz, because family really is about that balance of masculine. So as an affirmation to family, we want to make sure that we're acknowledging unions. So as Anu women, may we be cultured to be a fitting vibe for our mate, and may our mates, our men, be in possession of serviceable uprightness. So Baba Cruz, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you to open us up.
Yes. Blessed love family. Give thanks, Sister Deidre. Greetings, everybody. I feel as though this topic is very fitting, and I just want to kind of do just a little trip back down a memory lane. Just a couple of weeks ago, we touched on linguistics, and we got into the meaning of Anu. And we mentioned that a couple of things, or is mentioned in the Anu Way Foundations, that a couple of the meanings of Anu are to marry, we, the heavenly one, and the mercy of God. Right. So this would be a important note to take philosophically and from a calculating perspective to understand that the Almighty manifests itself through the binding and bonding of the heterosexual man and the heterosexual woman, and what they're joining into to actually create. And this is a direct development of family. All right, so we're going to explore this a little more at this point. I'm going to start the reading now. The decision to create family and whom to engage in the revered work with is one of the most important judgments we can make in our entire lives. Mathematically speaking, it is the second most important assessment we can make, the first being deciding which God we choose to serve. Our mating choice completes the cipher of our family religion. Religion means to bind back to the source or to reread. When we unite ourselves with our natural mate, we are recombining ourselves with the matching pair to our otherworldly, unearthly vehicle. It is through this mating that we produce more of what the originator of all life projected for us to be. In our completeness, for us to produce our finest, we must be functioning at our best. And then we will meet our matching best. Yeah, man. So when we dive into those two paragraphs, I just want to start off with sending a question to those who'll be listening, and says, "What do you define your natural mate to be, or what is your definition of your natural mate?" I'll just put it in those two forms. And we see in the first paragraph, there's a couple of things that I want to point out. It says, mathematically speaking, it is the second most important assessment we can make. The first being deciding which God we choose to serve. And that's followed up right away with our mating choice, completes the cycle of our family religion. So in Anu calculations, we're actually taught early in the book that the manifestation of the Almighty is actually the joining of man and woman and them coming together as a family to actually create children, also legacy. So these two are adjoined. It's a coupling that the man and woman have to have that actually would manifest. And we'll get into that further on in the actual reading when it starts to touch on purpose. Now, when we start looking at it is through this meeting that we produce more of what our originator of all life projected us to be in our completeness. For us to produce our finest, we must be functioning at our best, and then we will meet our matching best. So now this also is a compelling advance for us to actually modify ourselves and our thinking. So we would then start to actually see with true self-assessment in this process that the cycles that we tend to live out, the questions that we tend to ask ourselves, why am I always attracting this type of mate? Why this is always happening to me? Why my relationships don't work? Well, that there is the key. We're not looking to optimize ourselves. And the only way to optimize yourself is first priority. How is your standing with the Almighty? And that then should dictate how your mating and matching process would be. Sister Deidre, how's the chat looking?
Nothing yet. So if it's okay, I just want to add to what you just read in those two paragraphs. Something that stood out to me was the last line, the last two lines in the first paragraph about you know mathematically speaking, it's the second most important assessment we can make. The first being deciding which God we choose to serve, and that deciding which God we choose to serve, right? So when we think about movement in the secular world and we think about money, right? And it's like in God we trust. And so a lot of times, a lot of faith and belief is put into money. And then money is something that is fiat. It's fiat currency. It's just what you've accepted it to be. So it's not really that pulling from the soul source and returning to the source of the creator. It's something that is man-made and it's earthly. So you're not moving with your higher self. So I think,
Yeah, man.
do we have anything in the chat yet? No. So I'll just add a little bit more. I agree with what you said. When we talk about, and just speaking from a woman's point of view and like those women conversation or female conversation, and it's like, oh, I can't find a man, or I wish I find a man. And I've actually had some of those conversations. And the truth is, you're going to pull what's inside of you. There's that law of correspondence. What's on the internal is going to pull the external. So if you are, moving in a way where you're just still at like that base mentality and not moving with the higher self, you're gonna pull a mate, whether you're a man or a woman, you're gonna pull a mate that's also at that level. They're not necessarily at a level you aren't. And so in a sense, it's kind of like I look at it as you're actively rejecting what it is you say that you want, right?
Yes, 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 powerful. And yeah, just tying back into that first paragraph, and it starts to actually get strong into culture, because the movement of our connection to what we call the Almighty, whatever that definition is for us, is normally determined by the culture that we choose to actually live the lifestyle of. And that's when a strong supporting work from Chief Yuya that can complement this particular section would be the solutions for dysfunctional family, because there's a very strong write up on culture and mate selection, but it starts with culture. And choosing the God and choosing your culture will definitely be your major footprints.
So there's nothing in the chat, so we'll continue with reading. Anu people should only meet Anu people. If you meet someone outside of Anu, they should talk the doctrine of and become one with you in this effort. If a prospective spouse is not interested in uniting in your righteous ambition, you are attracted to the wrong article in them. It is our love for the originator of life and vitality that we detect in one another, which creates a natural pull between us. If that is not present, then we are adjoining under basic senses. Think of what you generate when you seek core spiritual genetic blends. A giraffe and zebra are in the same genus but cannot mate with one another. Walking on 2 feet and speaking an intelligible language should not be referenced for mating potential or the assumption of humanity. So I thought that that was very powerful, when and I think it pulls on what we, just said. We talked about solutions, and what is the main takeaway for me from solutions is that cross-cultural union and how two can't survive. And when we're mating and we're choosing mates, do we really sit back and look to think, what community is this person coming from? What is their culture? Do our cultures align? Or am I willing to make a transition to their culture? Or can I help to transition this person to my culture? Because only one can survive. Humans are in the same genus, but our communities and cultures can be so different and it can cause a rift in. The part about a prospective spouse not being interested in uniting in righteous ambition, then that means we're attracted to the wrong article in them. I want to talk about pull on what I said before about moving in those space, like when we think of even like chakras, like, we're moving in the lower chakras, those lower regions that are really focused on basic, needs and not necessarily focusing on higher self. So then we have to think, if we're moving like that and that's how we're selecting a mate, it's like that's what you're looking for. So you can't turn around and then think, oh, well, I thought you were, I thought this person was going to be righteous, or I thought this person was, going to, have that connection with the creator I have or that I'm looking for. It may not necessarily be. So it really speaks to, being cognizant of movement, right? Not, doing things unconsciously. The other thing is, like, when we're talking about mating and families and men and women, these really, really important. Um, if you're going to move or accept the culture of your mate, especially as a woman, that receptivity definitely has to be there. Because if it's not, it really is only going to create barriers and problems. There's nothing in the chat yet, so I will be reading. And just to remind if you didn't remember the question, I did post it into the chat. So it's, how do you define or what is your idea of natural mate? So I'll continue. If we do not take the family decision seriously, we will inherit the inability to actually harvest anything in this world or see it from a leveled place. We become one flesh with our chosen mate. Can you walk properly if one of your feet is 6 inches longer than the other? What if your right eye is constantly looking down as your left eye is looking up? How would you be able to set your hands to the work that your mind imagines if one half of your brain were stuck in a sleepless dream state, the other half was fully awake?
Very powerful questions. Continuing reading goes, when we choose to mate without equanimity, we misalign our posture balance. If we cannot stand straight, how can we see straight? If we spend our time constantly compensating for the mismatched coupling that we have partaken in, we will have no energy left to fulfill our purpose. Without knowledge of your creator, you will never know your purpose. Without knowledge of how to suitably choose a mate, you will never be able to fulfill that purpose. I think we need to hit those last two sentences one more time. Without knowledge of your creator, you will never know your purpose. Without knowledge of how to suitably choose a mate, you will never be able to fulfill that purpose. Now I just want to add a question in with the questions that were actually asked in this paragraph. And this question is actually from the Solutions book, page 27, paragraph 3 in the mate selection topic. And says, what does the purpose of this union mean for your family, your community, and your ethnic group? And most cases, we tend to think of our family union as exclusively just our homestead, but we never really think about what everything is that we're bringing and that we're actually binding together with this one union. How have the calculations actually manifested even from the ancestral plane for us here? And this actually strongly ties into a question that was placed a couple of weeks ago during the reading with reference to making steps back. Sometimes it takes us actually taking a couple of steps back to actually set the foundation properly, to understand what culture it is that we're moving through. We tend to find that the results of not making those steps back, even people who so-called profess to practice the same or follow the same ethnicity, you would find that they differ in major contrasts in some of the most essential things that they would differ on. For instance, in some of these spiritual communities that we would tend to be a part of or rub shoulders with, you will find that the points of views differ extremely. And on key vital edicts when it comes to actually maintaining family life, you have estranged parents from children, children who are, or I should say, people who are estranged from their community otherwise. So then there's no real accountability. And these are factors that we must take into consideration when we actually start this mate selection. We want to see what it is that's actually groomed the mate that we're actually moving with. This is where demonstration of a proclamation comes in. So these are very strong questions that I've held on to there too, and it's a check. It's continued checks and balances that allow us to actually maintain our posture, and it helps us to actually also gauge where we are, where we should be, and again the vital edicts, which we'll go into a little more. But purpose driven, a good segment that was Chief has done a number of segments on purpose, but a very good segment, which is something I actually came across recently, which was mating for for Anu men and Anu women. So I'll encourage everyone who hasn't checked it out to check it out, and those who have, with new eyes of time and study, to actually go back into that segment and take some strong notes. And I'm sure you'll walk away with way more jewels this time than you did the first time, with a newfound sense of purpose.
So we do have some in chat, and Ia Sequoia, she said, "My idea of natural mate, one who reflects your highest value, one who you can unite with under the same righteous culture." Um, Brother Antonio, he says, "As a man, my idea of my natural mate is a woman who is my natural complement, who helps me to accomplish my life work. This work also covers her and enables her to accomplish her mission as well." That knowledge into wisdom. Alex Gantz, Peace Alex says, "A true soulmate is 80% growth, love, 20% challenge." And I like to say peace and greetings to Chief Yuya, who has joined us in the chat. Chief Yuya,
Yes.
find my natural mate as the woman who matches or interlocks with my philosophy, best spirit, and highest idea. My idea of my natural mate is one who submits to my highest self. Give thanks.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's back to talking about receptivity, right? So without that receptivity, you're unable to submit. Um, you have to be soft, like not hard to play. I think, Aba Cruz, you had, when we were preparing for this, you had mentioned um, one of the presentations that was shared by one of the entrepreneurs, Brother Vermont. and talking about the cover crop, right? And so I think about like, soils. What are you going to do with soil that, you know, just won't yield anything? You leave it alone, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Me, myself, and I says, my idea of a natural mate is one that understands their role completely within the home and community. They are very clear on the importance of legacy. I hear like mission, having a mission in that. One thing I wanted to share after you read that final paragraph, Baba Cruz, is the idea like the family is a microcosm of the community, right? So it's all about it's at macro, micro, and it all fits into one. And so your culture that you practice in your family, there's also going to be a mirroring within the community. And so it takes us back to when Ia Precious, when we were reading off the vision, right, and what we envision, talking about that pedigree and how we choose our mates, and that's really important because we want to make sure that we are matching with those who are most like us. And taking that back to Yuya said, it's your match, you know, it's aligning with your anatomy, philosophy. It's not just like, oh, I like this. It's deeper.
Yes, yes, yes. And you know, even if you look at in the fourth paragraph, when we start to visualize what the questions are actually putting forth to us, we we look at that and let's tie that into the culture and the community that the person would be coming from. And I'll even take the page out of what you mentioned with Brother Vermont's presentation, preparation. Now, when you look at arms, eyes, legs, these things are evenly matched to support each other, you know, from the right and the left side. And their matching and functioning actually happens from old world evolution. The preparation does actually happen even before you became an adult to start moving. This is the reason why you actually start crawling and everything first. So you would want to also look at how people have been groomed. What are their functional base ideals? And you did mention something very strong from the family mission or the mission statement standpoint. And I'm not being overly biased with the solutions book, but certainly it's a walking guide. In the back of the solutions book, it actually has a model for family mission. And I kid you not, when I first really got into studying that document, it didn't sink into me until we actually did it on a workshop. And I asked a 55-year-old elder to me, who's a family man, children who are all in their 20s plus, do you have a family mission statement? And it was like a hoorah moment to him, like whoa, really, you know, like a lot of people never think about that. So certainly these are functionalities that we must adopt, and if we adopt them and adapt them properly, we will always have a running start and a level of I guess the celestial ember. That's the only way to put it. From the beginning of foundations, you know,
Right.
we really exhibit that.
It's funny how that keeps popping up, right?
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
we have another response in the chat from Taiwanese. Peace, Sister Moksha. And Moksha says, as an Anu woman, my natural mate was functioning within the culture of Anu, one who functions in righteous purpose and authority and aligned with the Creator. Absolutely, I wholeheartedly. Um, and I want to add, like, to that, to many of the responses, to kind of reiterate, we become one flesh when we, with our chosen mate. You know, so that goes back into the, you know, is being matched and interlocked with the body, philosophy, um, all of that. Peace, Oshun Waro. Um, and one thing that I wanted to, one final thought about the mating, right, and the family is I'm gonna pull it from the 14 keys, and it's from the chapter of Kuumba, and Kuumba is creativity, and it says, our creativity mirrors a loftier forethought. When we are not mirroring that higher intention, we run the risk of creating unconsciously. So when we're just, you know, oh, I like this person, you know, and not really about pedigree, culture, community, what are we really creating? There's not a real intention behind it. We are mirroring that loftier forethought, and thought is the thought is that masculine energy. So we have to make sure that we are adhering and aligning ourselves properly to what it is that we were created to be and do.
Yes, yes, powerful, powerful. And something that Sister Moksha said that actually ties into that Kuumba interoperability with another aspect of the 14 keys, which would be order. And I'll just tie right back into the third paragraph that you read, which says, "It is our love for the originator of life and vitality that we detect in one another, which creates a natural pull between us." So this is that righteousness and that not even the ambition, but the presence of the Almighty and the drive. Now, the presence of the Almighty and the drive is firstly manifested in the man. And the ordering of the steps and the direction will always be a conscious process, as opposed to it being unconscious once the man is directed and filled with the presence of the Almighty, which is Yah. And that is where we start to get into the higher planes of. I think the brother in the chat started to mention the soul energy. So this is where you start to differentiate from soul and spirit for those who would have gotten into the Anu spiritual training. So certainly I'll also encourage you all to get into that ministry for self, get into that ministry of self, which will actually put you to, for us to produce our finest, we must be functioning at our best. You have to do the self work. You must do the self work, or else you're gonna come into a relationship shabby, wretched, unpolished, and you're gonna be looking to get jewels, and you're not balanced. You're gonna hurt your community.
Right. We only want the special one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Coconut
So
eating, organic.
plant-based.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
So, peace, Kashia, and I'll just like go into the chat. I don't think there's any more comments, but I just want to acknowledge all of those who are in the chat. Quia, peace, Sister Munira, peace, Naya, peace to the precious mom, and of course, Sovereign East, me, myself, and I, Chief Yuya, Brother Antonio, yes, Sequoia. So I just want to acknowledge those in the chat, because we're winding down. And so before we close out, I just want to remind everyone who's in the chat, those of you who are ANU, um, you should already have your copy. But if you are not, just a reminder that the ANU Way, a free book. You can find it on the ANU Life Global Ministries website, www.anulifeglobal.org. You can find the On the Way along with other works, Yuya, the 14 Keys, Noir Mail, The Compass, Mind, Heart, Words, and other books like Solutions for Dysfunctional Families. Also, just a reminder that we will be opening up applications for new ANU members in March of this year. That's a little under 5 weeks. So make sure that you are, kind of keeping that on your calendar to mark. It's the same website, www.anulifeglobal.org. And a final reminder that, this is our opening to our spot, close of Yom Sabbat. Our cipher for tomorrow, so this is for our new members. Our cipher for tomorrow will not be on our network, but we will be graced with a presentation by one of our ANU members, Baba Mari El Utu, and he will be presenting on YouTube Live on this channel, this platform. So make sure you click the little bell. I don't know, just right here. Click the little bell on the bottom of your screen. Thank you. It's on that side. Click the bell on the bottom of your screen so you can make sure that you get reminders. And just a reminder, every fifth Sabbat, so there's only a few per year. So every fifth Sabbat, we will be opening up our presentations to the public. And tomorrow is the fifth Sabbat. We'll have that presentation and it'll be live here on this channel. So remember to like, subscribe. And Brother Cruz, Baba Cruz, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, man, and I can't say it any better than you have already. I'll just reiterate to anybody that is interested in taking their life journey to a higher plane and testing themselves to see if they can actually really unlock their purpose and become a true person from heaven that they're ordained to be, which would be submit your application and go through the orientation. Humble yourself to the process. Be qualified by your peers and get out of your own way. That is something that I think everybody should experience.
Give thanks. And so, with that, we are going to close out. Give thanks for all of you who joined us this evening. We will see you virtually tomorrow for Sabbath. Make sure that you join us. It will be a lively presentation. Make sure you engage in the chat. We'll see you on the forward. Peace.
Blessings.